Welcome to Power Your Life Today. This is Power Session number 55, The Art of FollowThrough with My Parents. I'm Christy Joe, Mind and Body Strategist. You can find resources on living your most powerful life over at poweryourlifetoday.com, including 5 steps to self-mastery. In Season 3, we're talking with my parents, Rod and Patrice. I'll call them Mom and Dad. They are veteran parents of 7 children and pseudo-parents to countless others. This show is brought to you by Body Buddies, an online nutrition and fitness education and coaching company. Learn to become the strategist of your health and your unique body, goals, hormones, genes, and emotions at body-buddies.com. In this second episode of Season 3, Parenting Power, I was able to discuss with my parents these topics: what they think about teaching follow-through to other parents, the story of Amelia, the sister that's just 2 years younger than me, and how I got in trouble to the same extent she did for lying in her science class, how painful it was when Denzel, the oldest boy, who you may have heard my mom and I talk about as he's no longer with us. That's in, I can't remember which power session it is, but go to the Suicide Survivors, and it's the 6th one. We'll talk about that. So anyway, back to a story where he had been asked to leave the home, but then he came to my dad at school. He came back and dad had to say no because he and my mom had already agreed together on that. When mom told Denz he didn't have permission to drive the truck to school or she would call the cops, how each of us kids learned a lot vicariously. One of the perks of being close in age with a lot of siblings, following through with young children when Dallin, who was the youngest, and his friend Harrison were hiding in the store and my mom left. How my mom used the technique called little ducks in a row to keep little kids in line at the store, the difference between bribery and rewards, following through on vacations and trips or fun outings, do what you say you're going to do, and how parenting can absolutely be manifest without being a parent. Mom, Dad, how are you feeling today about talking about follow-through?
Pretty good, I guess.
We're so excited.
That's exactly what I wanted to know. Just I think, because our listeners, I hope our listeners know that this is very much my idea, not your guys's. You are being very good. You are being very helpful and considerate of your daughter's desires. And
how about accommodating? We are accommodating you.
Yes. This isn't you guys saying you are the master parents, even though I think that.
Well, it's very interesting. It just really causes, at least me, to think about what we've done. And that could be a scary process because you have to look at things realistically and go, ooh, maybe we didn't do so good on that. But it's a great assessment because hopefully, why you're doing this is so that people can learn maybe from our mistakes and maybe from something we might have done okay.
Well, I think that's a good way to think about it. In Power Session number 1 of this season, we talked about parenting theory versus reality, and we just kind of overlooked everything as a whole. What is parenting? What are some of the things you had learned and some of those stories there? So hopefully our listeners did start out with that session. But today we're talking about the art of follow-through, helping kids respect you as the parent. Now, I came across a quote, which I think many of our listeners probably have heard, but it's simple. Actions prove who someone is. Words just prove who they want to be. And I think the essence of this is, when do we know when to follow through and when do we know to give on our word? So tell me, both of you, what are your thoughts? What is follow through in parenting?
Follow through is doing what you say you're going to do as predetermined. It has to be something that has been discussed, though, and is known, between parents and children, but then doing what you've said you're going to do under such and such circumstances or this or that, whether it's positive or negative.
Kind of going back to what we talked about last time, my feeling is you learn as you go. And sometimes you say things as a threat or motivation or whatever, and then you realize that, ooh, I shouldn't have said that. And there are times that I remember very specifically having words come out of my mouth and going, I have to follow through because my children have to be able to believe me, whether it's good or bad. One of the things that just really came to mind was how many times at the dinner table with 7 children, 2 adults, It's a lot of people around the dinner table. And there were times you kids kind of got carried away. And I remember the first time saying, you need to stop now or you're going to go to bed without any dinner. And it continued. And I said, you'll need to go downstairs and go to bed now. And what you kids didn't know was how much that just was gut-wrenching to me. But I had to follow through. No, you will need to go to bed now. Now, as we heard, years down the road, you kids snuck food to the one who was being punished.
Oh, we were a battalion.
Yeah, well, and you guys were very supportive of each other, but your parents didn't cave in. That was the thing.
Very true.
And I think that I can't even express how important I feel that is, that if you say something, and you better be very careful what you say, because you must follow through. And maybe you'll learn next time, maybe you'll say, go sit on the timeout chair until you can eat your broccoli, rather than go to bed without any dinner, Mm-hmm. Sometimes we learn as parents to not be so, demanding, so austere. But again, like we talked the first session, you learn. There really is not a whole lot of preparation you can do to be a parent. And so hopefully you pay attention what words leave your mouth, because probably one of the most important things you can do is be consistent.
And I remember multiple times, I have had so many memories of things, both of you following through on what you said you would do, both for in disciplined situations as well as in positive situations. If you told me you were going to be at a dance recital, you were there. If you told me you would bring me food while I was at my part-time job as a lifeguard, you brought me food. There was never any question in my mind that both of you would follow through, and that respect for you as parents definitely grew as I got older, and I know that's the same for our siblings. I do have one memory that came to mind. Mom, do you remember this? When I was a senior in high school, and there was a situation where Amelia, the younger, she's just 2 years younger than me. We won't go into the details of what happened, but needless to say, she was in trouble, and you told me she was in trouble, and you told me, do not tell your sister. When Dad gets home, we're going to have a sit-down with her. And I'm sitting there thinking, I have to be the good sister. I have to warn her. And so I told her. And I got in trouble because you followed through, and you said you were told not to tell, and I got grounded. I couldn't drive. And I had to walk home in really cold weather with my drill team bag full of clothes because we were practice drill in the morning.
Yeah, well, snowy days.
It was light flurry of snow, in St. George. And, the funny thing is, it wasn't like this horrible punishment because you actually did drive down to pick me up. Like, I was only a third of the way home. But you were making sure, did I follow through and not get a ride home, like you asked. So anyhow, in situations like that, in the moment, it was really hard for me, and I was not happy and definitely had a begrudging attitude. But now I can look back and say, did I have absolute respect for I needed to listen to my parents and follow? Yeah.
Maybe they're little things, but they are huge things that if you say something, you better do it. And I've thought of this several times because I think it was a really important learning experience for each of our children, whether they were involved or just observing that. Okay, number one, Amelia's situation, she brought it up just the other day, misrepresenting to a teacher. I thought, sometimes you and I and Dad know the details, but people listening to the podcast are probably going, what on earth happened? So I'm going to give brief details if that's okay. So Amelia, who was, 16,
I think she was in middle school.
Oh, so she was in middle school.
8th grade.
Yeah, it was middle school, so 8th grade. Anyway, they were supposed to build a catapult. For each kid was supposed to bring a catapult to class. Well, Amelia just didn't do the assignment, and she was sitting at lunch with some of her friends and going, I don't have a catapult. Well, one of her friends had the science class early in the morning. She says, just use my catapult. And so Amelia said, okay. Well, so she goes to class, and the two science teachers were combining to have the catapult contest. And the other teacher, who had Courtney in class, said, I think that's my student's catapult. And Amelia's teacher said, no, it's not. Amelia built it. No, I think that's my students. Anyways, this went back and forth. Finally, Amelia's teacher came over and said, Amelia, did you build your catapult? She said, yes. And so the teacher goes back and says, I know Amelia's parents. Amelia would never lie about this. And then the other teacher was adamant, I know that's my students. And so once again, Amelia's teacher came and talked to her, and she finally broke down and confessed it was not hers. Well, luckily, this teacher was smart enough to call me after school and advise me what had happened. And he had told me about the little bit of a conversation. And that was the thing, that she hadn't made her own catapult, that she had used someone else's was not cool, but that she lied, and she continued to lie to her teacher, misrepresenting our whole family, was really what she got punished for. And so when I was waiting for Dad to come home to talk to him, and I told you, and Amelia had come in, I didn't say anything, and I said, do not say one word to her. And what do?
I'm a loyal older sister.
There you go. Now, the thing that was so interesting was I had no idea that you had said something to her until the next morning as I was getting cleaned up. And I had this flood of inspiration. And it just said, Christy told Amelia. I went, no, she didn't.
What?
And so that's when I marched downstairs and I said, Christy, why did you tell Amelia? And you just broke, because I know. That's when I said, then you can have the same grounding. We talked last time a little bit about the switch that kind of flips with me, that I don't get mad. I just get very matter of fact. And that's one of those times. Just, sorry, you told her. I told you specifically that's willful disobedience to when I tell you exactly what you are not to do, which was not a big deal, but still, and that you went against that. That's what you got punished for. Mm-hmm. I'm glad that you were loyal to your sister, truly. But I had to follow through as your parent.
Dad, do you have any little flashbacks or memories of any stories where you had to follow through on what you told one of the kids?
Well, when I had to follow through on something that we, together as parents, had told Denzel, I don't remember all the details, but he had to be out of the house for a while. And he came to me at school and asked if he could come back. And I had to hold firm, and it was the hardest thing I've ever done because we had already made that decision together. And if I caved in then, that would not have been good for our relationship or for the trust that we had in each other and what we had decided on at that time.
And I don't know that there's really any, but maybe other parents who have had difficult times with teenage children or even adult children, but there is really no way to describe how hard it was for Dad and how vitally important it was, like Dad said, to his and my relationship. He could have easily said, oh, Denz, Mom's just really overreacting. It'll be fine. Why don't you just bring your stuff back home? That would have been so destructive to the respect of his parents, because just because one or other of the parents is the good guy who doesn't want to hold the line, who wants to look good, they actually undermine themselves because the child knows that that parent is caving in. And so for Dad to, with everything in his heart, he wanted to say, yeah, Denz, I love you. Come on back home. But Dad knew it was vital for us to be a solid front together, Dad and I, to be consistent together. And so he said, no, you will have to work things out with your mom, because I was the one who said, if you can't abide by the rules of our home, you will need to leave. And Denzel thought he was being really, picked on, but at the same time he had a tough face on it, and he says, fine, I'll just give me a few days, I'll think about it. And I said, no, you decide right now, because we had been pushed a lot. There were so many things that led up to this breaking point, and my switch had flipped, and I had gone very matter of fact. Follow the guidelines of our home, or you will need to find someplace else to live. And so he left that night, and he was gone for about a week. And he came into Dad's classroom, wanted to be allowed to come back home. Dad says, no, you will have to work this out. And so Denz and I ended up going to lunch together, and we did work it out. And because of that solid front of Denzil's parents together being united in what we said and did, Denzil knew what he could trust in his parents, that we would say what we mean what we say, and there is something very secure for a child to know that. They know where the boundaries are. That's probably more detail than you needed, but...
Oh, but I think that's all very helpful, the context of it. What could some of those negative consequences been if you didn't follow through, either in that situation or any other situation? What are some of the consequences that maybe other parents are dealing with if they're letting kids walk all over them?
Okay, we deal with horses a lot. Dad grew up with cows, and cows tend to push all along the fence line to see if they're secure or not. If there's a weakness in the fence, the cows will find it and they'll knock the fence down. And I think kids, especially teenagers, are like cows. They're not being mean necessarily, but they will push the fences to see if there's a weakness. And if there is, they will push and push until that fence caves in. So if we would have caved in, I think it would have just sealed the envelope for, I don't have to listen to my parents. They're not going to do anything. Watch this. All I have to do is push harder. They're not going to do anything. Oh, yes, we will. And there were a few times Denzil pushed a lot. And I remember one time, being a silly, silly parent, we bought Denzil a truck when he turned 16 because we thought that would be so cool to give him a truck for his birthday. Oh, stupid. We didn't have any money. We got a rundown old truck, and so it wasn't good enough, but still. And so he was going to drive his truck when he wasn't supposed to. He was grounded. And I went outside. Dad had already left for work, and I just looked him in the eye. I said, if you get in that truck, I will call the police. You do not have the permission to drive that truck. And I remember him looking at me, assessing whether to believe me or not. And he walked to school. So enough times of being consistent that your children can trust what you say, I think is really, really important. And if you say you're going to call the police, I highly recommend that you do. If you don't, they will never believe you.
Yeah, I'm glad it was never on me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I had the strength to handle that. I'd broken down. I had no backbone as a kid.
Well,
So
and I think most of you kids learned by vicarious learning. You could see what happened and didn't want to go down that road.
Powerful women are needed more than ever in today's society, not as a threat to men, but as a complement. When we as women stand in our power to achieve our happiest, healthiest selves, everyone around us benefits as well. Head over to poweryourlifetoday.com to download my free tool, A Female's Guide to Powering Her Life. In this download, you will learn the 5 power tools that will help you minimize stress, increase focus, and help you go to bed at night feeling like you are totally on your A game. Again, that's poweryourlifetoday.com.
You know, that really, I never thought about it that way. One of the benefits to being with a lot of siblings close in age was that learning. I never thought about that.
Yeah. Because when you see someone else go through something, you go, ooh, that's dumb. I don't want to do that. So you can thank your siblings, right?
Yes. Yep. Okay, so now let's take it into maybe parents of little children. And right now that's where a lot of your grandkids are at. And so you're probably talking with, right now, Mill has little kids, Jamie has little kids, Brandon Tan have little kids. I guess I should have said everyone's, spouse name. But.
Well, and this goes back to when Dallin, so our youngest was 5 years old, And Brandon, our middle boy, had been asked by a neighbor to train her dog, and he says, I don't know how to train. Oh, I'll give you the video. Well, I watched the video that he watched to train this dog, and so it registered with me. So here I have Dallin, 5 years old, and his best friend Harrison, 5 years old, and we went to outdoor outlet. They had a lot of tents set up inside. I was getting some cording for some stuff I was doing, and when I got my stuff, I said, okay, boys, it's time to go. And I could hear them. Oh, they thought they were being so funny to hide in the tent. Well, because I had watched this video on dog training that applies to little boys and kids in general, I walked out of the store, I got in the car, and I drove off. I didn't drive far. I just drove up the little ramp, and I got out, and I came back down and looked around the corner, and the boys were standing right outside the door, wide-eyed. Oh, no, she left. So I got back in the car, and I drove back down, pulled up, and I said, boys, I am so sorry you didn't want to get in the car when I told you it was time to go. I was going to buy you a treat. Well, maybe at the next store you'll pay more attention. And so I made sure I went to another store, took them to Ben Franklin's, and I said, okay, boys, it's time to go. And they were glued to my side. And, of course, I did buy a little treat, too, to reinforce what I had said. And so with little kids, Christy, do you remember Little Duck in the grocery stores?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
When I had so many kids. Yeah, the kids, and it was fun. And I didn't want to be always yelling at kids or being, I don't know, just one of those moms that, Johnny, get over here. No, forget it. So we just always did Little Duck. And the kids would line up behind me, and I'd say, Little Duck, Little Duck. And that was just the clue that kids got in line and followed Mom. We were little ducks in a row. And it was great. And so I think there are so many things that parents can do to help their children have fun and learn to listen and mind. Because when kids learn to mind, they're happier. I think.
Probably true. Yeah. Yeah. There's less tension, and you just know where you fit. You know who's the boss. And doesn't mean you're not going to push against it, but there's order.
There's a difference between bribing and rewarding. And I'd much rather reward. I won't bribe. I'll say, maybe next time you'll listen, and I'll be able to buy you a treat. Is that a bribe? Or is it a reward? Did they listen? You bet. And so things like that, instead of saying, Johnny, if you're really good, I'll buy you a candy bar. No. But if you listen, if you do the things that you're supposed to do, a lot of times when people do the things they're supposed to do, good things come. And so we'll see. We'll see how you do. And so there's just so many different strategies parents can use, but the anger and threat stuff is really ineffective, I think.
How were both of your parents when it came to follow through? And did you repeat some of the things that you had learned from being a child, or did you shift it all?
I'm going to remind Dad about when his dad came down the highway on his motorcycle, and the boys hadn't done what they were supposed to do. Do you want to tell that story?
I think you're thinking of something else, but go ahead and remind me.
Well, what I remember Dad saying was that they were supposed to have picked a lot of the garden, and they had a big garden.
We had a lot of squash. We would sell squash out by the highway. We were supposed to have picked squash and have it all ready to sell, and we hadn't.
And so when Grandpa Hunt was driving down the highway, because, it was a pretty rural area, and you could hear the motorcycle, and then you see the motorcycle, and the boys are going, oh, shoot, Dad's home, because they knew that he followed through. Mm-hmm. And they hadn't picked the squash. And Grandpa Hunt comes walking down towards them, and he starts taking his belt off. And the boys knew.
And that's all he had to do.
Just watch Grandpa take the belt off, and they got to work so fast. Now, I will say, and I don't mean to make particularly my mother, out as a bad guy. I have to say, I knew without a doubt my mom loved me, and she did so much good for me. As I think about all the things I have in my life because of my mother, I can never repay her. Where's my tissue? But with that said, was she perfect? No. Were there difficult things? Yes. And there were things I did not want to repeat. One of them, and I worked really hard with our family, was if I said, we're going to go camping in California, even though Dad still has to teach, we went camping in California. I don't think there's any time that I ever said that we would go do something that the kids were looking forward to and then said, never mind, you were bad, or I'm mad at Dad, or whatever, then had the kids so disappointed that we didn't get to do what I had said. And that's one of the things that I wanted to make sure never happened. I didn't want to use relationships or circumstances as leverage. If you don't behave, no. If you don't behave, you can go on the timeout chair. I'm going to go to the beach. Hope you want to join me, you know.
Yeah.
And so even like when we took the whole family to Hawaii, it could have been easy to say, oh, you know what, we really don't have the money. We can't afford it. Instead, I made paper chains. I think it was about 100 chains long. We had 3.5 months to look forward to this family vacation that would be one that would go down in the scrapbook of all time. And so I think even in little things, big things, if you say you're going to go to town and go to the library. In fact, the other day when I had Cayman, so 3 years old, Cayman and I spent the day together, and it was so much fun. And because I'd been sick, a few weeks ago, I still don't have all my energy back. And as we had run all kinds of errands, I was ready to go home. I was ready to take a nap. And Cayman says, Mama, because he calls me Mama, library. And I'm going, I don't want to go to the library. But I had said that was one of the things that we were going to do. And so I flipped the car around. It was the fastest trip in the library, but we went to the library. And we got some books, and we got some videos, and we came home. And so, again, he knows if I say we're going to do something, we're going to do it. So there's all kinds of things.
Yeah. Like golf.
Mom has a great
or
memory.
baseball.
She remembers lots of experiences. That's great.
Oh, well, and I could just imagine that the potential situations somebody might find themselves in are infinite. And so it comes down to character we're all building, or parents are building. I shouldn't say we. I'm not a parent yet.
You are too. You're doing it as a single person.
Well, I'm auntie-ing a lot.
Well, and you better acquire those same skills too. But, I think just from a personal perspective, say a person never gets married, never has children. So should they never follow through with what they say? No. I think it's called integrity. Can people believe you? Do you say what you mean? Do you mean what you say? I got a very sweet compliment the other day. One of my teenage piano students was out horseback riding with me, and there was a situation that we were talking about, and she said, my parents trust you. And that was just the sweetest compliment, that they had confidence in me. I say what I mean what I say. They know they can trust me with their daughter, not just in piano lessons, but out doing other things. And so that's why I think everybody should be developing these traits, not just when you become a parent.
I've never forgotten when I used to play softball back in, probably middle school. Yeah. And one of our coaches, he promised us a pizza party. And that pizza party never happened. And why have I never forgotten that? I'm 30 years old.
Interesting. Yeah.
And that makes me emotional because that taught me to follow through. There's not one dance group, not one Sunday school class, not one niece or nephew that I promised something that I haven't followed through because of that hurt. I remember that. I was looking forward to it. And to feel like it wasn't just me, the entire team, that we weren't a priority enough to make that happen was painful.
Right. Yeah, and kind of like when this summer we did a piano reward thing out at the Ivans Reservoir. And so I'm going to play the devil's advocate that maybe that coach didn't have experience enough to realize how important this party was. Because part of me, as it got closer to the swim party, I'm thinking, the kids probably think this is really dumb. Maybe nobody will even come. I'm second guessing myself. Well, everybody came and they loved it. They had so much fun. And so, I've thought just a little bit about it, that if I would not have followed through, what a disappointment that would have been for the kids. And again, it's just one more time that, can they believe you? Or do they go, yeah, right. She never does anything she says. And so I just, personally, that trust element, and I know it is for Dad. Dad, I don't know that Dad's ever done anything to make anybody not believe him. He just is very consistent, and he's
That's
not.
The word that,
consistent. Well, in fact, I think it was at his 20-year class reunion he got the least changed award. He's just consistent all the way around, and I think that is so reassuring. That's the word. Reassuring to young children, to older children, to everybody, that they know what they can expect from you. And hopefully it's good things they can expect.
Oh, from Dad, absolutely. Yeah. And from you. I mean,
I was almost offended.
Well, okay, now that came up, do you both remember, I think, was it Dad's birthday or a Father's Day, and I gave him a card or something, and it told him all of his qualities that I loved about him, and I don't know what happened, but then I made the comment, everything that Mom's not, and it just came out wrong, and I remember how upset you got, and I didn't realize my blunder until I really thought about it.
Yeah.
And how you had taken it that, that means you didn't have those qualities, where I was meaning you guys are so complementary, and so you fit together so perfectly.
Complete each other. Yeah. Yeah. But see, again, it goes back to an individual's insecurities. There have been times that I have bawled my eyes out because I compare myself to my husband. And he has all these wonderful, stellar traits that I don't possess. I can name one person in the last 37 years of marriage that he has offended, and it wasn't his fault. She took offense. I don't know if I can name on my hands and my feet all the people I've offended in the last 2 years. And so, that why can't I be more like him? And I think people do this a lot of times. We compare to other people, or we take this person's one good trait and that person's one good trait and the neighbor's good trait and, several people, and we bundle it all together, and then we compare ourselves to that conglomerate that does not exist. We compare all of our bad stuff to this combined perfect individual, and it's really destructive. And so the point is that we can't be better than someone else. Do you remember that quote on the fridge? We can't be better than someone else. We can only be better than our past self.
Yes.
And so
you remember that.
Am I better than I was? Oh, holy smokes, yes. Am I perfect? No. And so, like you say, Dad and I are very complementary. No, complex. Yeah, but Dad compliments me all the time. So Dad is very complimentary, but we complete each other. Worlds. Yeah. And, there have been times that Dad says, Guy, why can't I be more like you? You do this and this and this. And I'm going, oh, wow, I didn't know that. And so what I've told him is, I see Dad and I kind of like a kite and the kite flyer. I'm the kite. And if I didn't have the kite flyer holding me, grounded, I would be flying off and falling down on the ground. But because he's there as my stabilizing force, I can go all over the place. Look at this. Woo, woo, woo. And I'm way up high in the sky, but I'm grounded because I have this stable force of my husband. Without him, I wouldn't be up in the sky. I'd be laying on the ground somewhere.
Wow, that's a great analogy.
The other one, because, again, of the horses, and I've told Dad this many times, it's like I am a really great racehorse. I am high-strung. I am fast. I can do all these things. And if the wrong jockey were to get on my back and yank on those reins, I would buck them off so fast. But Dad is the perfect jockey. He doesn't yank on my reins. If there's ever a time that I'm out of line or that he's uncomfortable, all he has to do is say, Trace. And I know by his tone of voice and because of my respect for him that I will listen and say, oh, yeah, I probably should rethink that. And so, because he's a great jockey and I'm a really good racehorse, we can go all over the place. It's great.
And she doesn't buck me off either.
No, I don't.
Oh, well, I love this conversation talking about follow through, and we're going to expand into very specifics next week as we talk about discipline, including the timeout chair, grounding, spanking, probably. So, Dad, any last comment for us? Do you have any last advice for parents out there working on improving their follow-through?
Just never give up. We all make mistakes, but we can keep learning and keep trying. And working together with Patrice, with your spouse, is critical, so critical. If you try to do things in separate directions, it's not going to work at all. Even if one is doing it right and the other one's not, if you're not together on it, it's not going to work.
I agree.
Okay,
Love
bye.
you.
Bye.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a review. You can do that on iTunes, Stitcher, or any of the podcast players you are listening to this on. We are grateful for each and every one of your listens and hope you find that value. Through your reviews, we're able to reach more people. That's just the way the internet works. So we do thank you in advance for your positive review and for sharing your story with us. If at any time you'd like to reach out, share with us some insights, what you're learning from the Power Your Life Today podcast, definitely welcome that. You can reach me at KristyJo, KristyJo, at body-buddies.com. And if you're interested in learning more about nutrition and fitness and becoming a strategist and a critical thinker of your own health, join me on my other podcast, Body Buddies, where you will learn how to power your body one meal, one workout, and one day at a time.